the thing of it is, when you've got bows and arrows, you've got gunfire, you've got armour, you've got film crews, you've then got to train your horse to accept all that.
And actually the best thing for the horse is to move her off of the joust, and actually you've prioritised the horse. And it's great to hear it in that performance scenario, because you never quite know the dynamic going on behind the scenes.
It's a simple thing. The horseman's job, in a nutshell, is to listen and understand the horse. And don't let showmanship get in the way of horsemanship.
And you had to, on your audition, you were, cutting and slicing and getting your cabbages in line and doing all these tricks and all these different quests to win the job. But up to that point, had you done much of this action work with horses? What was your background up to that point? Or did you have to wing it? Johnny Browne is a professional horseman who joined the Royal Armories historical riding team 26 years ago. He's demonstrated equestrian martial arts from the Romans through to World War I. He and his horses have worn historical saddlery and clothing, including 70 pounds of full plate armour. He has trained horses for performances to large crowds using natural horsemanship techniques, and he's helped horses labelled as failures under the old cavalry-style system. Jonny has worked with horses for TV, film, and he's worked with the much-admired Atkinson's action horses. Jonny is even trained in equine-assisted psychotherapy. Stick around as we dive into that at the end of the episode. And we're beginning the episode with a cockerel crowing because Jonny just explained to us where you're sitting right now.
So I'm sat in our very lovely 1920s steamroller wagon, the one that would be towed behind a steamroller to go and work on the roads, and the blokes would have their tea and sleep in here, etc. And yeah, we're lucky enough to have it on site just outside the house as an extra sort of guest room, and such like that, and obviously a podcast recording area.
Oh. The most atmospheric podcast recording area ever for an episode of Curious Equestrian. I love it, how rustic it looks.
Hire it out to anybody.
Oh, it's the perfect backdrop for our conversation, Jonny, because we've got to jump into it and your professional life with horses, which is just fascinating. And it all started when you joined the Royal Armories. Can you just walk us through what a day in the life would be for you as a rider-interpreter?
Yeah, you bet. Well, the first thing was the actual interview for the job. So I replied to an advert, which in those days, adverts came in the Horse and Hound. That's where you got horsey jobs from. So I had the magazine weekly, and I saw the advert for a rider-interpreter to joust at the Royal Armories. I thought, that sounds like a great job. So I sent in some photographs of me doing this, that, and the other. And I also fenced at the time, which was an added bonus. And did some archery, again, tick. And I got an interview, and I went for the interview day, and it was the best interview that you would ever go on, because basically they just said, there's your horse, here's a sword, go cut those cabbages in half. And then you went and tried to cut the cabbages the best you could. First time you've ever done it. Then they handed you a lance and you hit the quintain and tried to pluck rings. This is a job interview. You go, this is awesome. So at the end of that, then they talk to you about your horsemanship and where you'd been and what you'd done. And eventually, I got the green tick and I went to join the team. And the first thing we did there at the Royal Armories in 1999, it was the centenary of Buffalo Bill turning up in Leeds in 1899 with his Wild West show. So to commemorate this centenary, the whole of the Buffalo Bill Museum was sent over to Leeds, including the Deadwood stage. And that was in the museum. And then we brought to life the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. So
Wow.
yeah. It was a bit of a baptism of fire, because this was my first time riding in front of 1,000 people in a crowd, bringing characters to life, swooshing swords, shooting guns, all that sort of craziness. And we had a great summer, an absolutely awesome summer.
And just paint that picture, Johnny. What did the Buffalo Bill Wild West show look like? Just paint that for us, because I can imagine it was full guns blazing.
Oh, absolutely. So the Buffalo Bill Wild West show, obviously, we'd not got the cast of thousands that Buffalo Bill had himself. He brought over First Nation people and all sorts of different actual Western characters for his Wild West show. So we didn't have the cast of thousands. So we had to do a lot of sort of jigging around and a few costume changes and things like that. But we tried to get the essence of the show, which was literally just bringing the Wild West to Leeds. So we had competitions between a Confederate soldier and a United States cavalry soldier. So we ran at the rings and we cut cabbages. We did rescue rides where one of our fellows would fall off his horse and we'd gallop up, grab him on the back of the horse and charge down the yard there. All that sort of thing. We had Annie Oakley doing her shooting demonstrations and throwing things up in the air. And obviously, because we're literally in the city centre in Leeds, we couldn't, and we've got 1,000 people here. We couldn't use live ammo. So again, we used balloons with sharps on our fingers. So somebody held a balloon up, and when the gunfire went, he touched the balloon with the drawing pin, a pop, and got showered in tinsel and things like that. So it was sort of smoke and mirrors, but it was really good, and we got so much great feedback from the crowd. It's that philosophy off of the Royal Armories of bringing the collection to life. And obviously, we got all this, the Deadwood stage and Buffalo Bill's actual buckskin costume and his hat and his guns and everything in the museum. And we were bringing then that representation alive. And that's what we've always done at the Royal Armories Museum. It's a wonderful place to actually see the historical item inside the museum and then go outside and see it charging around on horseback, which is, whether it's armour or bows and arrows or all these things, it all sort of interlinks. And it's giving history an entertainment feel without losing the history. But the crowds genuinely love it. And I've got to say, the people of Leeds have always been awesome at supporting the Royal Armories. And they come in their literal thousands at high days and holidays. And it's a great place. And I recommend everybody go see it because it's free to get in.
Wow. And where do you hear that these days? Very rare, isn't it, to have a free ticket price?
Absolutely. But the thing of it is, when you've got bows and arrows, you've got gunfire, you've got armour, you've got film crews, you've then got to train your horse to accept all that. And that's where I really started getting into, a different way of training, really. Because you can't force a horse to do any of that. It's like the old saying, you can do anything once on a horse, but you come to do it a second time. If you've not laid a good foundation, it's going to go horribly wrong, and gunfire is always one of those things that you try and get the horse accustomed to gunfire. It will, inevitably not work because the horse starts to anticipate the gunfire when you say the key word. So we started saying bang before we pulled the trigger. So the horse would go, oh, gunfire's coming. So it would get to know the keyword before the shot went off. So we got rid of the sort of preemptive thing. We just went, let's just shoot the gun. And the horses did genuinely become accustomed to it. And we did a lot of sort of gentle build up for gunfire. And it is one of those things that the more foundation you lay, because it's a short, sharp shock, it's a boof and it's gone, which horses aren't awfully keen on. But
and does it take a long period of time, Johnny, to gently build up and to actually get them desensitised to that noise? Does it take a long while, or?
Again, how long is a piece of string? Every horse is individual, and I can tell you that one horse would just stand there and shoot away, not a problem, and another horse wouldn't get in within 15 feet of a man with a gun. So you had to manage that. So you go, well, this horse is better than this horse. We'll shoot from this horse. This horse will keep in the periphery. So literally, a horse will have a bubble for gunfight. Well, with anything really. And I remember one of the horses, Snip. He was that horse that he'd get within 20 feet but no closer, and that was his comfort zone. There was his bubble. Whereas if we got another horse, Boris, you shoot off him all day. Not a problem. So again, you get to know the horses and their characteristics, and some would joust and some wouldn't. And you play to their strengths, and that's the key with anything and any environment like that. And the slower you go, the easier it is, and the more accustomed they get to all these things. And I always use that phrase, getting them accustomed to something rather than desensitizing, because again, it's that thing where you don't want them to be desensitized, i.e., just zoning out. You want them to go, okay, that happens. That's life. I am now accustomed to it. And I think, you definitely want to try and work with that. Get the horse to understand, to accept, and then to work with you with it. Interesting times, and I learned so much. Learned so much at the Royal Armories because I had the privilege of working there for 5 years, full time, with 8 horses daily, and then that team expanded when we had the big events to probably 16 or 20 horses, which in those days was supplied by Tony Smart, who is from the Smart Circus family. Awesome fella, and his wife June. So they used to bring horses up to the museum for Easter and August bank holiday big tournaments. And it was a joy. It was a joy when the other horses came.
Because we got that day in the life, Johnny, because you've got full-time, every day, a team of horses. Yeah. What was the average day like when you weren't performing, I imagine, every day? What did the shape of the schedule look like?
Well, we did perform every day.
Every
day from Easter all the way until the October half term. Every day. Whoa. So we had 2 sides of the week, with the whole team being in at the weekend, because obviously that's when you're going to get the majority of visitors through. So then the team expanded to 8 over the weekend and 4 during the week. So we, at the weekend, they were the big shows. We would have a joust every weekend, twice a day sometimes. So that's armour, that's lancers, that's setting up the tilt rail, everything. But obviously it starts at 7:30 in the morning with arriving at this wonderful stable yard in the centre of Leeds. Wonderful stable yard. And at that time we had horses, dogs, we had falcons, a full-time falconer. So we had to feed around, muck out, sweep the yard. And when I say sweep the yard, that thing was spotless every day. Our old boss was sort of meticulous. So we had to swill that thing twice a day before we had visitors. Because at the end of the day, it was the Royal Armories Museum. And we treated it like that, it was a royal establishment.
Wow.
Normal logistics, stable yard logistics, and then we talk about what shows were going on. We'd do morning exercise, so we'd ride the horses for between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, depending on which show we were going to do and what we needed to practice. And if the horses would, need a bit of upskill, or they needed to be introduced to a new weapon system or armour or gunfire. So we train that in the morning. knowing full well that the show was on at 2:00, whatever day it was, 7 days a week. And then so after morning exercise, we'd have a coffee and then we'd start prepping for the show. And the first thing we prepped was the tilt yard. And the tilt yard is amazing. It's a riding arena like no other, really, because again, you've got 1,000 seats down one side. You have industrial Leeds on the other side, which is now all flats and apartments. But when we were there in 1999, it was industrial mill buildings. You got the canal next door and a towpath. So it was getting the arena ready. And the arena is around 100 metres long and 40 metres wide. So it's a great all-weather surface. And we'd set out all the activities, all the games, head cuts, running at the ring, quintain, all the games that we play. And then we have big full-size wild boar, which are rubber. And I tell you what, getting a horse accustomed to those pegs is a job all in itself. Yeah.
I was going to say, that's way more scary than a gun.
Yeah, exactly. Pig! So they,
We've all been there. We've all been there with real pigs.
Yeah. And not only have they got to get accustomed to being in the area, we've got to ride past close enough to be able to put a medieval boar sword in the top of it or throw a spear into it.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was great stuff. And your average show in the week, when we was the small team, was what we called Elizabethan hunting games. So we used to fly falcons from horseback. So one or the other of us would ride in with a falcon on our arm with the falconer. And that would be the first part of the hunting game show. We would run the dogs, chasing a lure, and we would fly the falcon from horseback to the falconer. Oh, and that's just a joy. It's an absolute joy. Having a falcon on your arm, trotting around with a horse, it's sort of surreal, really. And that
you're
is probably
living, you are living history in modern day times, aren't you? And getting to experience what so many people don't. I mean, how did the horses interact with the bird of prey? Is that something I know every horse is different, but was it something completely abnormal to them? Did they identify this as like a bird in the sky and something we've seen before, or?
Yeah, again, it's like anything else that we introduce. We do it slowly, we do it carefully, and then the good thing about a bird of prey is if the horse has a bit of a wobble with the bird, you can just throw the bird in the air and it'll fly to the falconer. So it's not like some other things, you just get rid of it. There you go, there's the bird in the sky. And eventually the horses would get used to it. The hardest part of flying a falcon from horseback is if you have a hooded bird, and some of the birds had hoods over their eyes to keep them calm and to keep them relaxed while they were one near me and two near the horse. So to get the hood off, you have to use your teeth and pull one string at the back of this bird of prey's hood with your teeth and then your left hand and hold the horse in your right hand. And that was the most difficult part. Because as soon as the hood's off,
you have got to juggle so many different skills. What were you going to say about the hood there, Johnny? Sorry, once that hood is off, what happens?
So once the hood's off, the falcon can see. So the first thing the falcon does is look you in the eye, like, who are you? What are you doing? And you've got this raptor's beak here, going, oh hi, how you doing? I'll put you over there a little bit. But no, I used to love flying the falcons. And the crowd used to appreciate it, and in the week, we sometimes used to have sort of 20 school groups in there. So literally an audience of 1,000 kids from 11 to 16 or whatever. And they used to love this stuff. They've never seen that, especially if they've come from inner city Leeds. So the show was great. And again, horsemanship is so much It has so much purpose. Has so much purpose when you're actually doing another job with a horse. You're not just riding from A to B just for the ride of it. You've actually got a job to do. And obviously, originally, what we're bringing to life is a hunting party from the Elizabethan period, where they hunted their dinner, literally, with birds of prey. They would catch hares and rabbits and such. And then they would be chasing deer with dogs and chasing wild boar with swords. And all this stuff was preparation for, one, going to war on horseback, because it was developing your skills as a horseman. And while you're developing your skills as a horseman, you've got to be doing something else in the periphery as well, with usually a weapon in your right hand, cuts, throwing spears, bows and arrows. Obviously, that's another skill all in itself, because you've dropped the reins and now you're shooting from horseback. And again, it focuses you very much on the job, which then you go, right, what do I need this horse to be able to do? And obviously, when you drop the reins on a horse, you've lost that part of communication. So it's very much training the horse not to go, oh, thanks, boom, and take off like the Millennium Falcon. You've got to just encourage your horse in the training phase to get a nice rhythm, a nice balance, and to give you a platform to work from. Literally create a scaffold that is steady, listening to you, and available for you to be balanced in the saddle while you cut things over to your left and over to your right and use a lance and shoot a bow and arrow. And as you do all that, you need that horse underneath you to be happy and accustomed to all those things and know its job. And the horse loves a job. Absolutely. I have found over the last 30 years that a horse really enjoys a job. And I think one of the main reasons for that is because the human is not wholly focused off on them, which takes some pressure off the horse a little bit. And which, once the rider has done their job well, you've created this wonderful horse underneath you that listens to legs, seat, weight, body, and then reins as well. And it allows you to focus on, because if you don't focus on the target, you're not going to hit it. You blindfold a dart player, it's going to go all over the place, isn't it? And as soon as your attention is drawn back to the horse, it's drawn off your target, you're going to miss. So the more solid a platform you create, i.e. a good, solid relationship with your horse, the better you can do all the other things you need to do.
And that is the question, Johnny, isn't it? When we have our horses, whether it's for pleasure, leisure, or professionally, and they have a job to do, whether it be racing, showing, dressage, eventing, jumping, or like yourself, the big question that many ask is, but does that individual horse enjoy its job? Surely there are some horses that aren't quite fitting to a certain job. And then people might say, but how do you know that horse is enjoying its job? So that question to you, Johnny, how did you know those horses were enjoying their performance job?
It's a simple thing. The horseman's job, in a nutshell, is to listen and understand the horse. And that horse will tell you, first of all, subtly, and then that subtlety will expand and grow into what could be perceived as bad behavior. But if you're listening to your horse from the get-go, and you persist to do the same thing, and regardless of the horse, eventually that horse will start careering over there and putting the brakes on and bucking and just expanding his argument to say, I don't like this. I genuinely don't want to do this. So as a horseman, that is your job, to listen to the horse and then understand what he's telling you. And this is where I've done so many trailer loadings in the past. And the horse is trying to tell the human, don't go in that. Don't want to do that. And for whatever reason it doesn't, the horse starts with just going, no, just slowing down, to just stopping and then turning around and trying to pull them that way, to rearing up. And he'll go through a full toolbox to try and get the person to understand that I don't want to go in there. And the sooner you learn to listen to the subtlety of the horse's communication with you and go, oh, right, okay, yeah. And if the horse really won't take to something, genuinely won't take to something, you go, okay, we have to find the thing that this horse can do. So it's like I said with the gunfire. If the horse isn't going to do the gunfire, it's not going to do the gunfire. You can't make the horse do gunfire. It's impossible. Same thing with the bow and arrow, because unless you, again, lay a really good foundation, a lot of horses are just like sitting on a thunderbolt, aren't they? You know, you'll drop a contact and they'll go, pa-doom. That's not the horse to go archerying on. You know, you want a horse that will just go, yeah, bowling along. Hey, I'm good. Just a nice, steady, whatever you do on there. And if you find that horse, and what usually you find is the traditional, more stubborn horse that has more woe than go, that's a good horse for gunfire usually, and that's a good horse for archery usually. Because what you're doing is, one, you're letting go of the contact. You're letting go of a contact. And a lot of those horses don't want contact because it's like shutting an iron door. So, as I said initially, as a horseman, figure out whether, one, this horse is good for the job. And if it isn't, you're going to have to change either the job or change the horse to facilitate the job.
And you move your different, team players around in terms of horses. They can move jobs. It's not that they're then out of the team. It's just that they're tailor-made and they sort of jiggle about.
Exactly. It's certain things that, so certain horses wouldn't take a crupper. They just couldn't stand a crupper. So they didn't have cruppers. We had barding, medieval horseware that didn't involve a crupper because that horse was just saying no. So you go, let's make life easy for everybody and develop a system without a crupper. And whatever you do, and again, it's that thing that most people that just have one horse, it's difficult because if you got, I want to do mounted archery, but you've got an ex-race horse that has been trained, bred, and has been on the race course since it was 10 years old, that might be a tough ask because you're going to drop those reins and want some sort of just bowling along canter. So you're going to have to do a customization and a lot of reschooling to get that horse to go quietly on a no contact. It's not unachievable, but again, it depends on character.
Yes.
And usually, if they're coming off the race course at 4, they're a failed racehorse, which means they're of that maybe a slower character. And you go, I might be helping to do something there. I've worked with loads of thoroughbreds, which are absolutely awesome at this stuff. Because they're failed racers, they're just not quick enough. They don't like running that much. They like a nice steady canter. You go, yeah, we can work with you. But again, playing to the horse's strengths, playing to the rider's strengths, and finding a job that suits both is key. When you've only got one horse, I'll go on a film set and I'm changing tack a little bit. There'll be 40 horses tied up along a few trucks and trailers, and
wow.
It's then the horsemaster's job to go, right, who's the team? Who are we putting with who? Because he knows the horses, he knows the riders, he knows which is the best fit. And that's it. It's about finding a best fit. And I always say to anybody that is really relationship-wise not getting on with their horse, it's like any breakup is hard. Yeah. I hate selling horses. I hate buying horses. The whole thing is emotionally charged. But if it's really, really, really not working because you have something you really need to do with your horse and the horse is not the right horse for the job, you got to get a different horse because you can pluck away for years. But, and you've all done it. We've all done it in human relationships. You go, I'll keep it going. No, just cut, chop. Make life easier for the horse. Make life easier for yourself. Try and find the right person for the horse. And then you've got to then go find the right person for the right horse for you and the job you want to do. So I am a big advocate.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of looking at it. I like that. And Johnny, you've got to say as well, we've talked about your work in the saddle, but also you did a lot of retraining of difficult horses as well during your time at the Royal Armories. So what kind of problem, quote unquote, horses were you dealing with, and what was your approach?
So, as I say, I started in 99 at the Armories, and it was that year. I'd been to see Monty Roberts a few times. Monty Roberts had been coming over since the mid-90s. And every time he came over, I went and listened to him. Because, again, you can learn something from every horseman. Whatever level they're at, they will throw that little pearl of wisdom in. And so that's where I started. And it really inspired me, really, to find different ways of doing things with horses. Because obviously the chaps I used to work with were ex-cavalry and ex-mounted police officers and things like that. So they had a certain way of doing things. Fit in this box. Fit in this box. And some horses just didn't want to fit in that box. And you just couldn't do it. There's no point. And then I met Dave Stewart in 1999. I went to a talk up in Otley or something really weird. Oh, there's a talk by an Australian horseman in Otley. Okay, so let's go listen. So I went and listened to Dave Stewart, and at that time he was working very much with Pat Pirelli, and it was great. It was fascinating. I really sort of connected with what he was saying there. And then that was end of 99. I went to America in 2000, and we got a layover in Kentucky. And we'd not got time to go out of the airport, so we were stuck in the blinking airport for like 14 hours. So I went to the bookstore, which that's what they had in the year 2000, a bookstore. And there was a full shelf of Western horseman's books.
Wow.
On just about every subject. And because I'd been to see Dave Stewart and he'd mentioned Pat Pirelli, there was Pirelli Natural Horsemanship book there. I thought, perfect, 14 hours. So literally 14 hours in Kentucky airport and the flight home, which was another 12 hours or whatever it was, via the moon, it seemed. It was the longest journey I'd ever had. And I read the whole of this book, cover to cover. Thought, that is awesome. That is great. So I signed up to the program when I got home. And obviously used to get the big boxes of videos and all that sort of stuff. And I watched it, and I watched it again, and then I watched it again, and I watched it about 20 times. And working with my horses at home, and then going to the armories and working stuff out there as well. And it just smacked me straight in the face. It went, this is how it works. The horse literally understands exactly what I am asking. And you go, wow, this is crazy good. So then I sort of, I wobbled around with Pirelli for a while. And as I say, it was, the horses are always those that teach you. I always say I've got lots of influencers, but the horses are genuinely the teachers. And what the horses were teaching me at that time was my energy was far too high. One. because I was 27, 28 years old, good grief. I'm high energy anyway.
I was
I'm
going to
53
say,
now.
what's changed, Johnny? What's changed?
Yeah, hey, you ought to have seen me at 28, crikey.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm probably 50% of the energy, but the horses were saying this to the horses were saying this to me, and this is where it started to really work on me. It's like, take a breath, dude. Cock a leg, mate. You got something. Be happy, and things start to click and work, and it's then up to you to recognize what the horse is telling you. And what horses and this is key. This is horseman stuff. Own your mistakes. Yeah, I've done what? I've been around horses 35 years odd. I was getting it wrong for a big proportion of that. But it's up to you to go getting it wrong. And this is what this whole system sort of shows you. Then I discovered Ray Hunt and the Durance brothers and all those people in the West, because obviously from doing the Wild West show, that's where my juices were fired for the Western thing. Because I just came up through the riding school system. And all these guys, and obviously there were books, there weren't videos available in 2000, 2001 and all those early thousands, really. It was only when the internet kicked off that it became available. So it was books and it was videos and it was the Eclectic Horseman video series and things like that. You had to sort of order and they arrived. YouTube wasn't a thing.
You had to really work at knowledge, didn't you? Ordering the books and then taking that quiet time to read the books instead of just binging YouTube or sticking on a podcast and listening passively. You had to actively go and search for that knowledge, didn't you? And really concentrate.
Yeah, and it was. And then obviously Pat started coming over to the UK in 2001, I think. So I literally hit every time he came over, I went. Yeah. Every time I went and visited and went and watched and audited, and I went and trained with Mike Bridges in early 2000s, who's a great vaquero cowboy and an amazing horseman. Actually rode, and I knew that Mike Bridges was a good horseman, and the way I knew that was Dave Stewart was riding in the same clinic. Dave Stewart and Charlotte Dennis were riding on the Mike Bridges clinic. You go, yeah, I've chosen well here, because if they've chosen to come ride with this guy, yeah, we're winning. And that's the thing, horsemanship is never, you're on a lifetime learning thing. And everybody says you're always the learning curve. It is an upward curve, but the problem is, if you're not careful, it steps. You plateau. It's realizing that you've plateaued. You've gone, oh crikey, there's something happening here. I've not learned a thing this year. I need to watch something, read something, go audit, but you've got to realize you've plateaued, and then it'll go, boop, but then you'll plateau again. And that's the way that learning curve works. It's catching yourself before you get indoctrinated in a way of doing things. And that's when you stop looking at your own mistakes. Forget about listening to the horse. You've made your own box to try and squeeze the horse into, So it is.
And talk us through, Johnny. Talk us through some of those transformations during that time of working with the more quote unquote difficult horses at the Royal Armories, and what you were learning with natural horsemanship, and how you actually helped some of those horses that were kind of disregarded in a way as being problematic.
Yeah. So we had one horse at the Royal Armories particularly who wasn't fond of armour, i.e. a man on armour on her back. And she was built for the job. She was sort of physically perfect for the job. She was a a cob cross. She'd probably got a quarter Shire in there, or Clydesdale, but cob as well. So she was got a leg in each corner. She was a real handsome horse called Dolly. But again, like I said about character, she wasn't fond of the armour. And you go, well, is it the shape, the shine, the weight? Let's diagnose this. And eventually you go, it's a lot of sound. Because obviously armour, full plate armour, clanks. You are the Tin Man. So the first thing we did was we put earplugs in. So we So we got saddler's twine and and ladies' tampons, and we created earplugs. Right?
No, you didn't.
And we thought, yeah, we did. So we attached because we wanted to sort of prove the theory that it was the sound more than anything. Yeah. So she had the earplugs in and the. So and we mounted up just with legs and that clanging, and it made an amazing difference. So we got a big green tick of yes, it's the sound. We've got a sound thing going on. She doesn't like that clanging, that clattering. Okay. So we started to sort of work with that and build the armour on and and also work with her to just gently ease her into it. So what I started to do was, the usual routine would be, once the horse was used to the armour, get the horse used to passing another person in armour. And then it's crashy lance time. Yeah. And the way we used to do that was, the rider on the new horse would not have a lance. He would just get hit with a lance.
Right.
And because you've then got two hands on the reins, and you can manage that a lot better, etc. And usually that worked great, and you sat and you breathed and you said, ooh, and you brought the horse down. And again, you just build things up gradually until you were able to go, now I can ride one-handed, now I can have a lance in one hand. Boom. But with Dolly, we sort of took I suggested we take a step back. So I started, and it's always better for a horse if the thing it's scared of is going away. So I started just following the jouster down the tilt rail, the other rider come in here, let this rider get hit, the front rider get hit, the other jouster is still going to go past, but Dolly doesn't get a hit. Right. So let's get her really accustomed to this rider going past while following a friend, clatter, clatter, clatter. And it was all going beautifully. So we went, right, okay, let's get hit. And I got hit. And she, whoo. But she stopped the other side. Great. Call it a day. Brill. We'd repeat, great, happy. And then she lost an earplug.
Oh,
she lost an earplug. Yeah. And it was she wasn't happy. So we had to really just bring it down, relax. And eventually, and I just said to the stable master, I said, is it really worth doing this? I know she looks perfect for it. But you're always going to have that thing half in your mind that if she loses an earplug, she's going to go blah. And that was one of those occasions where you learn that you can sort of paint over a symptom. You can sort of, work with it, but it's not really helping anything, because if that thing, that whatever it is, comes adrift like the earplug, you're just going to be back at square one. The horse is not going to be happy. And after great debate, it was decided that Dolly would not joust because she didn't like it. And I thought that was just the perfect thing. But that's an example of sort of doing something and how not to do something, but it teaching you a great sort of lesson.
And it's
then
great
there
to
are
hear
other things.
you fighting for the horse as well, and actually saying, I know this horse and we've tried X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
And actually, the best
yeah,
thing for the horse is to move her off of the joust. And actually, you've prioritised the horse. And it's great to hear it in
yeah,
that performance scenario, because you never
yeah.
quite know the dynamic going on behind the scenes.
No, and that's that for me with the show scene and the show once it starts. What a good horseman should, yes, perform the show, but his first. I always say I ride horses like Mark Atkinson's watching, who is Atkinson Action Horses. So I when Mark goes good job, you go, yeah, I did a good job. Mark said so. And that's how you should ride a horse. You should ride a horse sympathetically. And that old saying of doing things for the horse, not to the horse, is a big thing. And don't let showmanship get in the way of horsemanship. And it's one of those things that I always would do that in a show. If something was going pear-shaped, I didn't care. I would go and sort that thing out. And to be quite honest, the audience sort of liked that, because what the commentator would do would go, oh, Johnny's found that the horse didn't want to circle off to the right for whatever reason, so he's just working on that a little bit, and then he'll go and he'll cut the head cut. And you cut the head cut beautifully, you bring the horse back into your hand, everything's bouncing along, perfect, great. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's the difference. It's like anybody that goes and does a show jumping course, a dressage test. Once you have got to the point where you go, this horse is not capable or up to this course or this test, don't just quit and ride out. Ride the test for the horse. Ride that, not for the judges. Judges have gone. Judges have gone. Don't care. Ride the horse for the horse, to help the horse for next time. And that's where, as I say, you then put down the show, put down the course, put down the test, and work with the horse and for the horse to help get through whatever issue you've got. And that's the key to good horsemanship, really.
And before we continue, Johnny, I've got to ask you. You mentioned the Atkinson family, and many will know Ben Action Horses. What was it like working for the family?
Do you know what? They are the nicest people on the planet. And I'm not just saying that because they might watch. No, they are just. Do you know, it's working for any sort of family firm is different from big business or anything like that. And they are such nice people. Genuinely, Mark and Jill are just the loveliest folks. And then that just has filtered down to both their kids. Both Lucy and Ben are just lovely people. And not many people probably know about Lucy. But again, she's an amazing horsewoman. Amazing, trick rider, great horsewoman. But she's a school teacher now, but both Mark and Ben, great horsemen. And I always say about Ben, and I've known him for 10 years now, 10 years. And we always have great conversations. And I say, this is what Ben gives to the horse world, right? He shows the world what's possible. What's possible. Working 8 or 10 horses at liberty, and not just do a circle or this or that. No, this is incredible. And you go, I tell you what, if Ben Atkinson can do that, surely I can do it with one horse, and work it there. And that's what Ben gives to the world, really. The possibility. The visual possibility of what you can achieve if you have an ultimate relationship and fabulous communication with horses. And I say I've worked with Ben on various different things. I've had privileges of riding most of his horses, the Andalusian stallions and such like that. And it's an absolute privilege to, again, learn from those angles,
And Johnny, I've got to ask you. There's so much I want to still ask you, and we're running out of time. But I want to weave back quickly to the beginning when you said you saw this advert in the Horse and Hound and you went for it. And you had to, on your audition, you were, cutting and slicing and getting your cabbages in line and doing all these tricks and all these different quests to win the job. But up to that point, had you done much of this action work with horses? What was your background up to that point? Or did you have to wing it?
I just totally winged it. Literally, totally winged it.
No, I thought you were joking.
No. So before that, obviously, most people in the UK, they start riding and they go to the local riding school and they learn to ride, and then they go, oh, I'll go show jump, or I'll go dressage, or I'll do this and this. And I wanted to do a little bit of cross country, a little bit of team chasing, maybe, because that's what there was. That's all I could see. That's all there was. So I went to the normal riding school. I went when I was 18 years old, and I learned to ride. And at that time, there were 5 riding schools in Chesterfield. There's 1 now, which is that's the unfortunate thing about horses in the world at the minute. But I learned to ride, and then I went and competed at local show jumping and cross country, and a little bit of team chasing, and really low level stuff. And just plateaued. Did this. Because that's all I thought there was. Until, again, I found Monty Roberts in 1996 or whatever that was. And thought, oh, that's interesting. But I couldn't do anything with it. I'd not got a round pen or, whatever, And then, obviously, it got to 1999 and this job advert appeared. I'd been riding for... I don't know, 8 years. 8 years, and I'd owned my own horse for 6. So I'd got the horse. I'd got 3 horses of experience before I went and did it. And this is what I always say as well. Yes, and then I literally, because obviously I'd been sword fencing, I was going, I can do that on horseback, surely. Can't be that difficult. Just chop cabbage. No, easy. I had a broomstick under my arm before I went for the interview. Oh, that's how you do that, surely. We'll be fine. So basically, just absolute bravado, young man syndrome. That I just went and So I got the job just with ego and bravado, I think.
And then you learned so much along the way.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing, and that's where I realised, that I'd hit this plateau, and there was the horse world was so much bigger, and it just opened my eyes to so much, including obviously television and film work, and live shows, armour, gunfire, bows and arrows, fantastic, and it also expanded. I say I went from 3 horses of experience in 8 years to, I don't know, countless horses of experience in the following 5 years. And that's how both me and my son is a horseman and does the same thing as me. And that's how we count experience. When we go to visit somebody, we don't say, how long have you been around horses? We say, how many horses of experience have you had? Because you can have the same horse for 25 years. You've got 1 horse's experience. To me, that you're still very much a novice. Yeah. You're a novice because, and this is where most people go, hey, I need help, because their horse just died. They got a new horse of the same colour and the same stamp, but it's a different character. I just replaced 1 for 1. And they don't know how to work with this horse because they only have this one's experience. And that's a really important thing, I think, for everybody to sort of just go, well, how many different horses, how many different characters, how many different breeds? Because the breeds come with different characteristics. Yes. How many different horses have you worked with?
And we can go through, can't we, our lives and and credit each horse with the journey and the lessons along the way. Even I can think of the ones that were real turning points with major life lessons that I learnt about horsemanship or riding or groundwork, or even about my own personality and struggles. So like you say, that is such a great way to pinpoint it, not in years, but in how many horses you've actually worked with. I love that. And Johnny, I've got to ask you, you talk a lot about horses as mirrors, and I love in all that you've done, it shows, you know, great confidence and bravery. And I love that you're always on a quest to learn more and you really are on a journey. But what I really think shows particular bravery is that you had sessions of equine-assisted psychotherapy. And this is a whole nother sort of different passage of equestrianism, really, isn't it? To unlock the way you think, the way you work, past traumas or struggles or issues. What was that like, and what is psychotherapy with horses?
So I trained in equine-assisted psychotherapy with the Agala organisation, which is Equine-Assisted Growth and Learning Association, which is an American system. Horses are a gift to humans. They are a genuine gift, because through the horse we can learn so much about ourselves. And this is the secret, again, to horsemanship. Let the horse teach you some stuff about you, about how you manage your energy, about how you approach problems, how you approach training, how you approach these things. Let the horse really get into you and hold that mirror up to you. And their behaviour will reflect where you are. What? And again, people think, oh, energy, it's a bit la-la, it's a bit ooh, it's, you know. But your physical energy, both how you feel emotionally, physically, mentally and emotionally, but also what the frequency you genuinely vibrate at. The horse taps in and just feels. And he'll tell you before you know, some of the time, how you're feeling. Just by his behaviour, whether they want to come up in the pasture and say hi, or they look at you from the corner of the pasture going, nah, not today, mate. No, you look like you're angry or you're grumpy. Or, you know, and if that happens, you've then got to go, well, he caught fine yesterday. Why won't he get... You go, it's me. I'm the problem. Because I've had a bad morning. I didn't have breakfast. I'm on a time budget. So this is where the horse, just at daily level, and everybody who has a horse has come to horsemanship to work on them, whether they know it or not. You know it now. But then the next layer onto that is the equine-assisted psychotherapy, where the person that comes to you for help not necessarily is a horse person. And then the team in Agala, which is a qualified psychotherapist and a horse person. So it's a two-person approach. And you work as a team with the horses and then the client. Now, as part of the training, you have to have sessions. Oh, I was a mess. Tears, emotion, it came pinging out of me all over. And the last training I did, my father had recently died. And the horses, there were 3 horses in the arena, and they just, well, they blew my mind with how they responded to what was going on for me. And it was all about the relationship I'd got going on with my dad. And it was, wow, it was so powerful. And whether you believe in this stuff or not, hey, it was there in horse form, playing out. And it was an amazing experience.
What is it, Johnny? Is it counselling whilst you're doing something with the horse, or are you just standing with the horse, or are you doing groundwork? Like, how does it look in a session?
So there are so many varied angles to this. And again, it all depends on the client and what they bring to then how the team, the psychotherapist, the horseman and the horses then come up with something to hopefully help with what they've brought. Now, sometimes they'll tell you what they brought and sometimes they don't want to say. But it's then down to the human team to get the client to interact with the horses. And that can be as simple as walk into the herd and just tell them your problem. Tell them. Don't tell us, tell them. And because that communication, that dialogue is happening with a species that doesn't understand English, the person might feel more comfortable articulating to the horses what the problem is. But in doing so, that relieves pressure on the person. And when they have had enough, if you like, they feel like they should disengage, they'll come back or we'll invite them back. But what I've been doing as the horseman is looking at the horses and their response. And what the psychotherapist is doing is they're looking at the human and their response to the horses.
Wow.
And we're talking and communicating. And then I always used to let the psychotherapist talk to the client. And it has amazing outcomes. Amazing outcomes. You've just got to be open to it. And obviously, as the horseman as well, I'm making sure that the client is safe. So they're not trying to climb on board bareback on a horse that they've never ridden before and they can't ride. Silly things that genuinely can happen. So I'm always sort of gauging safety as well, especially when if you've got a young person that wants to sit underneath the back legs of the horse. You're looking at the horse going, oh, well, I know this horse and I know this horse really well, but that's really... But you've sort of then got to just hope this is then you working on you again, because this is your anxiety about somebody sat underneath the horse. But you know the horse, there's a chance that it could all go horribly wrong. But you're sort of trying to let the client have the experience. So, and this is the juggle. This is the thing. And that's an extreme case. That's an extreme case that possibly could happen and has, I'm sure. So it's a thing that is so powerful. And I would say to anybody that wants a therapeutic experience, especially a horse person, what they've got to do is take their horse hat off and go, I don't know what, don't go in being a horse person, just go in being a person and let the horses work on you and see what comes up. But it's very powerful and I 100% highly recommend it. They have a great website. There are some great people practicing it out there. A gala is out there if you Google it, and all their practitioners are then listed on their website in the UK.
And you also, Johnny, work with clients' horses with everyday problems from loading to riding to on the ground. How would you say your lifetime experience in the performance world, in the Western world, in the film and TV world, in psychotherapy, have all fed into your unique approach when you go out to the everyday horseman that's struggling with their pet or their leisure horse or their competition horse?
Yeah. Again, it's most people that I talk to, firstly, they've acknowledged they need some help. And at whatever point that is, they've made the decision to get some, and I get the phone call or the message or whatever it is. I always say, try and make that decision earlier, because you can muddle through like with any relationship. But the sooner you get some help, usually the easier it is to solve. And in my experience of literal, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients, is Don't take yourself out of the equation. You are part of the equation. That possibly means you are part of the problem. Acknowledge it, because through you acknowledging that you are in a relationship, you are possibly part of the problem. Things can get easier very quickly, but you've got to accept that, yes, you may have done things wrong. I can hold my hand up and go, yeah, done some stupid stuff. Got that wrong. Totally bad, But if you can hold your hand up, look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, that was me. So I would say, one, always look at yourself first. And this is where the mirror is. All my clients, I say, look, first thing you do, tack room, put a mirror up. A genuine physical mirror, right? This is first thing. Look in it and go, talk to yourself. That was my fault. Look in it before you have a session with the horse and you go, how are you feeling today? The person in the mirror is so important in your life. Yeah. And start with that person in the mirror every time. And especially if you're having a problem or an issue, go there first. Ask yourself questions like, how am I this morning? How am I this week? What has happened in my life? Yeah. What is happening in my life? Is there a correlation? So talk to the person in the mirror as often as you can. And yeah, hey, it's not a bad thing to communicate with yourself. You've got to be able to look at yourself in the eye and go, yeah, good job, dude. But the thing after that is always see yourself as part of, if there's an issue, you are part of it. You are in a relationship with, another species, but it's a very sensitive species. And it's the difference. It's a prey animal. You're a predator. Understand that, the basics, and hold your hand up always if you messed up. Own your mistakes. Own your mistakes. Because one, they won't chew you up. And two, you can move on from them and try not to make that mistake. And always, like I said before, do things for the horse and with the horse, not to the horse. Yeah. And you can't sort of go too wrong with that. But start here first.
Oh, Johnny, such powerful advice and so many golden nuggets of advice and inspiration. Thank you so much for your time. For those who've been watching and listening and want to get in touch with you for some help maybe and want to reach out, how do they do that?
There are a few ways to do that. So you can go to the website, which is simplegoodhorsemanship.com. I think it is .com, or is it .co.uk? They said try .com or .uk. I'm not quite sure what it is. I've had both. I think it might be .com. You can find me on Instagram at simplegoodhorsemanship.
I've got it here in front of me. It's .com. It's .com.
There you go. There you go. We solved that mystery. You can go to Simple Good Horsemanship on Instagram. You can find me under Jonathan Browne on Facebook. You'll find me. I'm out there.
Johnny, thank you so much. You're going to stick around and answer some listener questions behind the scenes in our membership zone. You can come and join us if you want to hear that conversation. So don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for listening to and watching Curious Equestrian. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you don't miss an episode and all that's coming your way. Or you can subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you listen. If you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would really help us to find lots more lovely listeners. We'll see you next time.